All right, strap yourselves in for this one, folks.
Yeah.
We're diving deep into some truly dark territory today.
That's right.
We're talking about the mind of Rudolf Höss.
Rudolf Höss.
The commandant of Auschwitz.
Yeah, the commandant of Auschwitz.
When you think about the Holocaust, I can wrap my head around the facts and figures, the sheer scale of the atrocity, but trying to grasp the mindset of the man who designed and ran Auschwitz,
Yeah.
it's just a whole different level of disturbing.
Well, it is. And to do that, we're going to use a very unique source.
Okay.
We're going to examine excerpts from Höss's own autobiography, written while he was awaiting trial.
Wait, so he wrote an autobiography? I mean, what could he possibly have to say after orchestrating the deaths of over 1 million people?
That's the question, isn't it? But within those pages, there's this disturbing glimpse into his mind. Maybe even some clues to his transformation from a seemingly ordinary man into a perpetrator of unimaginable evil.
I'm already getting chills, and we haven't even started yet. Okay, so where do we begin with unraveling this dark puzzle?
Well, we have to start at the beginning, with his roots.
Okay.
Höss was born in 1900 into a very strict, devoutly Catholic family. His upbringing was all about discipline and unquestioning obedience to authority, both religious and parental.
It's like the foundation for blind obedience was laid early on.
Exactly. And, psychologically speaking, that kind of environment can be a breeding ground for authoritarian personalities.
Yeah.
People who are drawn to rigid structures and follow orders without question, especially in times of perceived crisis or threat.
It really makes you wonder if he'd been raised differently. Could things have turned out another way?
It's impossible to say. For sure.
Yeah.
But, those early experiences definitely played a role in shaping him.
Yeah.
And then as a teenager, he's thrown into the horrors of World War I.
Of course.
He serves in the cavalry, sees combat, even earns Iron Crosses for bravery.
So he's already experienced violence and trauma at a young age.
Right. And after the war, he kind of drifts around, joins various paramilitary groups, many of them fighting communists.
Okay.
And this period's important because it's where we see his early tendency towards brutality.
Right.
In 1922, he participates in the murder of a suspected communist, a school teacher named Walter Kadow.
So violence was already part of his life.
Absolutely.
Even before the Nazis came to power.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even before the Nazis came to power.
Wow.
He's convicted and sentenced to 10 years in prison. But he's released early in a general amnesty.
Okay.
He tries to build a normal life,
Right.
Works on a farm, gets married.
Sure.
But the pull towards authoritarian groups remains.
Right.
When Hitler rises to power, Himmler recruits him into the SS.
And that's where things take a really dark turn.
It is. In 1934, he's assigned to Dachau, one of the first concentration camps.
Right.
Now, here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
In his autobiography, Höss describes feeling uncomfortable with the sadism he witnesses, particularly from the camp commandant, Theodor Eicke.
Hold on. He's uncomfortable with the sadism, but he stays. How do you reconcile that?
That is the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
He later expresses regret for not speaking up.
Yeah.
But at the time,
Yeah.
he's drawn to the power and authority of the SS uniform.
Of course.
He's also buying into the Nazi propaganda.
Right.
Seeing the prisoners as enemies of the state.
Yeah.
It's this disturbing blend of discomfort and conviction.
Yeah.
Almost like he's trying to convince himself that what he's seeing is necessary.
So already we see those seeds of his justification taking root.
And this dangerous detachment starts to develop. He oversees firing squads at Dachau.
Right.
Maintaining this cold, emotionless distance from the executions.
It's like he's compartmentalizing, separating his actions from his emotions.
Exactly. And this ability to compartmentalize, to detach himself from the human cost of his actions, will become even more pronounced as his role in the Nazi machinery expands.
And with the outbreak of World War II, his path takes him to Auschwitz.
That's right.
It's almost unbelievable how this one man went from farm work to orchestrating the most horrific genocide in human history.
Well, initially it wasn't about genocide.
Okay.
He was tasked with establishing a new camp in Poland for forced laborers.
Right.
A seemingly mundane logistical challenge.
Right.
That place, of course, was Auschwitz.
I'm already getting a sense of the chilling efficiency we'll see later.
Yes. He throws himself into the task, building it from scratch, showcasing his meticulous organizational skills. And here's where things get even more complex.
Okay.
He moves his wife and 5 children into a villa right next to the camp.
Wait, what?
They have gardens,
So he's building a concentration camp, a place of suffering and death,
Right.
while simultaneously living a seemingly idyllic family life right next door. How is that even possible?
That's the question that haunts this entire story.
Yeah.
It's a jarring juxtaposition
Right.
that forces us to confront the human capacity for compartmentalization, for separating the personal from the monstrous. What did his wife know? How did they reconcile these two worlds? These are questions we'll explore further as we dig deeper into Höss's psyche.
Right.
But first, let's talk about the moment everything changed. Himmler's visit in 1941.
This is where Auschwitz transitions from a labor camp to a death factory, right?
Exactly. Himmler is so impressed with Höss's efficiency that he orders the expansion of Auschwitz and the construction of Birkenau,
Right.
a massive new camp initially intended for Russian POWs.
But we all know it becomes something far more sinister.
It does. Thousands of Russians die during the construction,
Right.
worked to death under Höss's command.
It's a chilling foreshadowing of the horrors to come.
It is, but the true turning point comes when Höss is summoned to Berlin.
Oh, okay.
Himmler informs him of the final solution.
And that's when the full weight of the Nazis' genocidal plan falls onto his shoulders.
Yes, but before we get into the specifics of Höss's implementation of the final solution at Auschwitz, we need to take a step back and understand what that term actually meant.
Okay.
The final solution wasn't just this vague plan to eliminate Jews.
Right.
It was a meticulously designed, bureaucratic program aimed at the systematic extermination of all Jews in Europe. It was the culmination of years of Nazi ideology and racial hatred,
Right.
a horrifying blueprint for genocide.
So Höss is tasked with putting this monstrous plan into action. I can't even begin to imagine how someone processes that.
He describes the order as monstrous,
Yeah.
but never questions it.
Wow.
He still sees himself as a soldier,
Yeah.
following orders no matter how horrific.
Right.
He even visits other extermination camps, but finds their methods crude and inefficient.
Wait, so he's looking for a more efficient way to commit mass murder.
That's exactly what's happening.
Wow.
He wants to find a way to make it systematic, to streamline the process, to avoid what he calls bloodbaths.
It's just... How can someone think like that? This is where I really start to struggle to comprehend the psychology at play here. How can a man who's seemingly devoted to his family, who enjoys gardening and playing with his kids,
Right.
also be searching for a more humane way to kill thousands of innocent people?
It's a chilling paradox, and it gets even more disturbing as we delve into his specific solutions.
Okay.
His deputy, Karl Fritsch,
Okay.
suggests using Zyklon B,
Right.
a pesticide.
Okay.
They conduct an experiment, gassing 900 Russian POWs in the old crematorium.
Okay, we need to pause here for a second. This is just heavy.
It is, but understanding Höss's reaction to this first gassing is crucial.
Okay.
He describes feeling relieved.
Relieved.
He sees it as a way to avoid the messiness of other methods,
Okay.
a more humane approach to mass killing.
I'm struggling to even process that. How can he possibly see it that way?
It's a chilling example of his detachment,
Yeah.
his ability to rationalize and compartmentalize even the most horrific acts.
Yeah.
He focuses on the technical aspects,
Right.
the efficiency of the killing,
Right.
while completely ignoring the human cost. And that's how the machinery of death at Auschwitz really begins.
Right.
It transforms from a place of forced labor and horrific conditions into a factory of death, essentially.
Right.
Höss uses that meticulous nature of his not just to oversee the construction, but to actually streamline the process of extermination. He studies arrival procedures, transportation logistics,
Wow.
even crowd control.
So he's applying the same organizational skills he used to build the camp
Exactly.
to the killing itself.
Precisely. And here's where it gets even more disturbing.
Okay.
He realizes that using brute force and overt aggression just creates chaos and panic, which slows things down.
Right.
So he instructs the SS guards to be friendly,
Wow.
to engage in conversations with arriving prisoners, even to play with the children.
So he's weaponizing kindness.
In a sense, yes.
Wow.
He wants to maintain this facade of normalcy, of order.
Right.
Even as he's leading people to their deaths,
Yeah.
he has songs put up pointing to disinfection and baths. The Zyklon B is delivered in trucks disguised as Red Cross vehicles.
It's a calculated effort to deceive people.
Right.
To keep them calm and compliant right up until the moment the doors of the gas chamber slam shut.
Exactly.
It's just, I can't even wrap my head around the level of manipulation involved.
It's a chilling example of how human psychology can be exploited,
Yeah.
how trust and hope can be twisted into tools of oppression.
Did anyone see through this deception?
Some did. Höss himself recounts encounters with those who sensed their fate. A woman questioning his heart as she watches her children being led away.
Oh, wow.
An old man prophesying that Germany will pay dearly for this crime. Others clung to a sliver of hope.
Right.
Maybe even denial right up until the end.
It's heartbreaking to imagine the terror and confusion those people must have felt.
Well, it is.
I mean, were there any cracks in this facade of detachment? Did anyone in the SS push back against this horror?
Höss does describe the psychological toll on some of the guards.
Okay.
There are accounts of guards requesting transfers, unable to stomach the killing,
Right.
especially when they encountered German-speaking Jews,
Right.
people who could easily have been their neighbors.
So even among those tasked with carrying out these atrocities,
Yes.
there's a flicker of humanity,
There is.
of conscience.
Yes, but it seems like that flicker is constantly being extinguished by the pressure to conform, to obey,
Right.
to not question orders.
What about Höss? Did he ever express any doubt, any remorse for what he was doing?
He describes riding alone for hours after each gassing, trying to clear his head,
Right.
to suppress the emotional turmoil.
Right.
He admits to feeling unhappy, even tormented.
Wow.
He talks about the burden of his duty,
Yeah.
but he also writes that he couldn't imagine a worse punishment than being removed from his position.
It's like he's trapped in this cycle of horror,
Right.
unable to escape the role that he's created for himself.
Right. He's clinging to this idea of duty,
Right.
of following orders as a way to justify his actions,
Of course.
to maintain his sanity.
And it's not just a self-imposed justification.
Right.
He confides in Adolf Eichmann,
He does.
the architect of the deportation system,
Right.
expresses his doubts that the emotional strain of seeing children murdered.
Right.
And how does Eichmann, the man responsible for coordinating the transport of millions to their deaths,
Right.
respond to that?
With cold, brutal logic, he mocks Höss's sentimentality,
Wow.
argues that sparing the children would be a mistake.
Oh, wow.
They would grow up to seek revenge.
Yeah.
He reinforces the Nazi ideology,
Yeah.
dehumanizing the victims, framing the genocide as a necessary act of self-defense.
It's a chilling reminder of the power of propaganda and ideological indoctrination.
It is.
So rather than offering solace or challenging his thinking, Eichmann pushes Höss further down this path of detachment and dehumanization.
Exactly. And Höss internalizes this. He doubles down on his commitment to the final solution. He sees himself as a shield, protecting Germany from its enemies, even if it means suppressing every human emotion. And so the killing continues. Auschwitz becomes this nightmarish symbol of industrialized murder.
Right.
Höss oversees the construction of 2 more massive underground gas chambers and crematoria. The capacity for killing grows exponentially.
Wow.
He describes high-ranking Nazi and SS officials visiting the camp,
Right.
witnessing the efficiency of the operation.
I can only imagine the depravity of those visits.
Some are speechless, others become physically ill, but the killing goes on,
Right.
fueled by Höss's chilling commitment to his duty, to his twisted sense of morality.
It's almost unfathomable. And even as the tide of the war turns against Germany, he remains fixated on this deadly task.
He does.
Is there any indication in his writings that he understands the magnitude of what he's done, the scale of the suffering he's inflicted?
There are glimpses of self-awareness, moments where he describes feeling overwhelmed by the enormity of it all.
Okay.
But he never fully confronts the moral implications of his actions.
Yeah.
He clings to the belief that he was just following orders.
Right.
That he was a cog in a machine, absolving himself of personal responsibility.
It's a defense we hear time and time again from those who participate in atrocities.
Yeah, he is.
But is there any truth to it? Can someone really detach themselves that completely from the consequences of their actions?
That's a question that psychologists and historians continue to grapple with.
Right.
And is one we'll explore further as we examine the final chapter of Höss's life, his capture, his trial,
Right.
and ultimately his execution.
So the war is ending, the Nazi regime is collapsing. What happens to Höss at this point? Does he try to disappear, to hide from the consequences of his actions?
As the Red Army advances in 1945, Höss and his family flee Auschwitz.
Okay.
They actually take enough poison with them to ensure that none of them fall into enemy hands alive.
Wow.
They hear about Hitler's suicide, about Germany's surrender.
Yeah.
They know what awaits them.
But they don't take the poison.
No. And that's another crack in his carefully constructed persona. The family ends up splitting up. Höss manages to evade capture for 9 months, hiding under an assumed name, working as a farmhand.
He goes back to his roots.
Yeah.
But can he really outrun his past?
His past catches up to him eventually. His wife is apprehended.
Okay.
And under interrogation, reveals his location.
So justice finally catches up with him.
In March 1946, British soldiers arrest him. Some of Jewish descent.
Wow.
They nearly beat him to death.
Wow.
He's initially held at a prison camp in Nuremberg.
The site of the trials for other high-ranking Nazi officials?
Exactly.
Yeah.
While he's not tried at Nuremberg, his detailed testimony there, the first from such a high-ranking official involved in the camps, helps secure convictions against other Nazi leaders.
So he becomes a witness against his own regime?
In a way, yes.
Okay.
He's then handed over to Polish authorities.
Okay.
And his trial begins in March 1947. Throughout the proceedings, he remains remarkably matter-of-fact, chillingly detached.
Yeah.
He claims he acted out of a sense of duty, that he would have killed his own family if ordered to do so.
It's that same defense we talked about earlier, that just following orders justification.
It is.
But how much weight does that really hold?
That's the question, isn't it? Is it truly possible to abdicate all personal responsibility when carrying out such horrific acts?
Right.
Can a man who orchestrated the deaths of over 1 million people truly believe he's simply a cog in a machine?
It's almost impossible to believe, but that seems to be the line he's sticking to.
He even draws comparisons to Allied bombing raids, failing to see the monstrous difference in scale and intent.
Wow.
He sees himself as a small bureaucrat, just carrying out orders from higher up the chain of command.
Right.
A Polish psychiatrist examines him and concludes he's not insane.
Okay.
Just a normal man capable of unspeakable cruelty.
Normal, that's a terrifying thought.
The court sentences him to death.
Okay.
He's hanged at Auschwitz in April 1947, right next to the crematorium.
A chillingly symbolic end for the man who oversaw the deaths of so many in that very place.
It is. He finishes his autobiography just before his execution.
Wow.
His final words are haunting.
Yeah.
He describes his life as full and varied, claims he followed his star wherever it led.
Wow.
There's no real remorse, no true reckoning with the enormity of his crimes.
So we've gone deep into the life and mind of Rudolf Höss.
We have.
We've explored his childhood, his wartime experiences, his transformation from a seemingly ordinary man into the architect of a horrific genocide. But I have to ask, after all of this, are we any closer to understanding how someone could become capable of such monstrous acts?
It's a question that continues to haunt us.
Yeah.
I think Höss's story serves as this terrifying reminder of the dangers of blind obedience, of the seductive power of ideology, and the ease with which we can dehumanize others when caught up in a system of hate.
Yeah.
His ability to compartmentalize, to detach himself from the human cost of his actions, is a chilling example of how even seemingly normal people can become perpetrators of unimaginable evil.
It's a stark reminder of the fragility of our own humanity.
Exactly. And while we might never fully understand what went on in Höss's mind, I think it's crucial that we continue to examine his story.
Right.
To learn from it and to be vigilant against the forces that can lead to such atrocities.
His story should serve as a warning.
It should.
A reminder to always question authority, to challenge hateful ideologies, and to fight for the dignity and humanity of all people.
Absolutely, because as we've seen, the line between normalcy and monstrosity can be terrifyingly thin.
Yeah.
And it's a line we must all be careful not to cross.